Well, hey guys, hope you all enjoyed Test 2. Test 3, All Blacks vs France. How exciting. Guys, in this video I'm going to be covering my predicted 23 that I think the All Blacks will be select. Obviously it's subject to injuries. There's a few last week with Caleb Clark and unfortunately Scott Barrett ruled out, but hopefully there's no more injuries, and this is what I think will be the predicted 23 that I think the All Blacks will go with for Test 3. Let me know your thoughts on this down below. So starting off with the front row, I don't think there will be too many changes here, and the reason why I say that is I just think the All Blacks are going to want continuity. The set piece is absolutely massive at international rugby level, so again I can't see too many changes here, so I think they'll stick with Ethan de Groot at number 1, Cody Taylor at hooker, and Fletcher Newell at tight head prop. Look, I think firstly you look at Ethan de Groot, he's starting to play quite well, isn't he? He had sort of a run where he wasn't being selected. Mighty Williams was sort of ahead of him, but it's good for Ethan de Groot to be back involved in the All Blacks level. He's an experienced All Black now. Set piece he did particularly well in Test 2. And he's just building that confidence. And look, ultimately he is still a quality front rower. So he's had some good performances for the All Blacks. Cody Taylor, let me know your thoughts on him down below. I probably would say at the moment on form, he's the head and shoulder number 1 hooker in the country. I just think particularly the accuracy that he has with his set piece, like his line out throwing, particularly all areas of the line out last night, back, front, was particularly accurate. Yeah, so I think at the moment on form, he's head and shoulders the best hooker in the country. But yeah, again, he just keeps turning up week in, week out, doing the basics really well. Hard ball carrying, high work rate, set piece, phenomenally accurate. And then Fletcher Newell, again, just does his set piece really well. Scrummaging, the line out work, particularly his lifting in the line outs was particularly effective. So again, I can't see too many changes there. Potentially they could start with Ollie Norris and Pasiola Tosi. I don't think they'd ever change Cody Taylor at hooker. Potentially they could bring Samasoni in to start there, but again, I just think they'll want that combination and keep building on that set piece. Locks, Patrick Tuipulotu, Fabian Holland. Nah, I can't see any changes there for Test 3, guys, and the reason why, keep blooding some experience into Fabian Holland. Apis, he's only 2 Test matches in and he looks like a 50 Test All Black. He was phenomenal against the French last night, wasn't he, in Test 2. Set piece, so accurate. That line out, I would say, is probably some of the best line out work I've seen from the All Blacks. Just that extra height Fabian Holland brings that you can see is making a real difference. But in his set piece work, scrummaging, his ball carrying, his high work rate on defence, Japis, he's a real find for the All Blacks. And Patrick Tuipulotu, geez, he's been out and hasn't played for a while, but he was phenomenal in Test 2. The basics he did well, particularly the leadership and the power he brought with some of his ball carriers was particularly effective. So yeah, I can't see too many changes there. The other thing I'd say about our locks now, particularly you look at the two of them, Scott Barrett when he comes back. I would say the last few years, probably the All Blacks haven't probably been world class at locks, but I would say now with Fabian Holland, I'm pretty confident the All Blacks can compete at the line out with the world's best, the Springboks, the England, the Ireland forward packs. So particularly impressive from Razor Ray, and I'm sure he'll keep building some depth in these areas. 6, 7, 8. Yeah, look, I mean, potentially you could make some changes there. I think if they were going to make some changes, potentially Artie would go back to number 8, and potentially you could bring in Duplessis Karifi, maybe Samapini Finau into blindside flanker. But yeah, I mean, it's a hard one. I definitely don't think they'll change. I think they'll want to give Tupu Vai another chance at blindside flanker. Particularly, he hasn't had a lot of games at blindside flanker for the All Blacks before. Keep developing him as a combination there. The physicality, the high work rate that he brings, the line-out option. And look, Artie Severe, whether or not he plays 7 or 8, I think that he'll start at 7 there. And Christian Leo Willie at 8. Again, potentially Christian Leo Willie could drop out to the bench or out of the 23. But he was phenomenal for the All Blacks, I thought, in Test 2. The physicality he brings with his ball carries, the high work rate. But particularly, it was impressive to see him get a couple of turnovers at Test match level. You know, the breakdown is definitely a step up at Test match level to Super Rugby, and for him to get a couple of key turnovers there was particularly impressive. So I think they'll probably just give him another week at number 8, Christian Leo Willie. 9-10, Cam Roigard, Bowden Barrett. Look, potentially they could put Cortez Ratama at halfback and maybe start Damien McKenzie. Again, I don't think they'll honestly change that. I think building that combination, Cam Roigard was exceptional in Test 2. The power that he brings, his passing was effective. Game management particularly effective. That combination with him with Bowden Barrett really positive. And you just see that game management, that leadership from Bowden Barrett really starting to come to fruition. Particularly, I thought the All Blacks attack in that second test. Obviously, the French didn't have a good performance, but you know, the variety on attack, the clarity on attack from the All Blacks, the way they were able to attack into space with their kicking game or shifting the ball, and their variety on attack was particularly effective. So again, Bowden, I think they'll give him another week there just to build that game management for him. 12-13, Geordie Barrett and Billy Proctor, I think they'll go with. Look, I can't see a change there for Geordie Barrett. Potentially they could bring in Tamosi Tamitavao into 12 or Quintapaya, but I can't see a change there. I think they'll just keep building that combination. And look, Geordie Barrett, let me know your thoughts on him down below. I think at the moment on form, I'd say he's head and shoulders a level above every other second five in the country. Just at Test match level. And why I say that, the big moments, like Test 2, he was phenomenal. Particularly when there was some breaks by the French, particularly in, I think it was that first 15 minutes that the French had that sort of breakout wide. Geordie Barrett got out that right wing. He made that try-saving tackle with, I think it was Imoni Narawa on that wing. You know, that was a big moment. If the French had scored there, maybe they get their tails up and the game could have been different or more closer anyway. But yeah, I just think the leadership he brings and Geordie Barrett's defence is definitely underrated. He's particularly accurate, hard defender, game management. He covers really well. He's a good ball carrier, kicking option he brings. And I would say at the moment, he's definitely one of the best second fives in the world, if not the best. So Billy Proctor, again, I can't see any changes there. I think they'll just keep building his experience. And I thought he does the basics really well. That second test, some ball carriers, his passing game, his game management game, the way he links up with the wings was particularly effective. And so I think they'll just give him another chance there. Back 3, I think they'll go with Rieko Ioane, Tamosi Tavinawai. I can't pronounce that very well at all, guys. And at the back, Will Jordan. Probably, I'm interested to hear you guys' thoughts on this, but Rieko Ioane, Tamosi Tamitavo, I think they'll go with him. I think Rieko Ioane, I think they'll have him on the wing for his experience, and Tamosi, I think they'll have him there to blood him into Test match level, and particularly Tamosi's speed, the power he brings, keep developing him. I think they'll go with those two. And then obviously Will Jordan at the back. Look, he's world class. The leadership he brings, the game management, the attacking threat that he imposes on the opposition, he's class. What I would say about the All Blacks wingers, and yeah, maybe this is a bit harsh, but it's a bit surprising. Traditionally, All Black wingers, we just seem to have a conveyor belt of absolutely world-class wingers coming through. One goes down, one steps up. They're capable of getting the ball, blitzing the defence, generally always beating that first defender, and they're really hard to contain. But I think at the moment you look at some of the wings we have, the Rieko Ioane, the Tamosi, Caleb Clark. Yeah, and what I would say about our wingers at the moment, I don't think that they're probably quite world class at the moment in terms of if they get the ball with a little bit of space, do you have confidence they'd definitely beat that first defender and make a break a real attacking threat. And I don't think any of those players are, particularly the likes of Rieko Ioane. I just think at the moment, the way he's been playing for the Blues, they use him sort of more of that power as a battering ram, and you saw that in Test 2. Mosi, it'll be interesting. Maybe he can beat that first defender. Maybe he can step him. It'll be interesting there. Caleb Clark, I think traditionally he's more of a power defender, and it just that international defence, they're not beating the first defenders like they need to. And look, a couple of examples. Unfortunately, Mark Talia was, on his day, he was one of the best wingers in the world. A couple of examples of Mark Talia. Look, you look at that game last year, the All Blacks versus England, and Mark Talia won the All Blacks that game. Particularly, they spun the ball wide to Mark Talia. He had no right to score that try in the corner against George Ford, but Mark Talia was just so slippery and such an attacking threat. You look at Mark Talia in the semi-final of the Rugby World Cup in 2023. The game was pretty close. It was in the balance. Mark Talia got a short ball off the ruck, slipped for about 3-4 tackles, and then got the ball going, and the All Blacks ended up scoring. So again, I just feel the wingers, which is quite surprising, is a real sort of weakness at the moment for the All Blacks, having that real attacking threat that can just blitz that first defender, slippery, powerful, and make that break. And particularly players for France, even Biari, raw speed. I don't think that the All Black wingers really compare to him. So my comments there. To the reserves, I think they'll stick with Samasoni Takiaho, Ollie Norris, and Pasiola Tosi. Yeah, again, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they did change it up a bit, but they're not with Samasoni. I think he'll definitely come off the bench, but the All Blacks are winning comfortably that third test. Maybe these reserves come off with 35 minutes or even at half time in test number 3. Samasoni, I thought that test 2, look, his ball carrying was good, but I just thought at times and this is not all him, but the line out went a little bit inaccurate. So he'll want to be a bit more accurate in that regard, him and the line out for test 3. Ollie Norris, Pasiola Tosi, again, they'll just give them more time there, get the set piece working, get that physicality working. Samapeni Finau and Duplessis Kirifi. Sort of an interesting one with Samapeni Finau. I'm not sure sort of where he's at with the All Blacks. Like, obviously, they brought him on in Test 2. I mean, he's a real physical presence at Super Rugby level. I don't know that he's quite the physical presence that they're wanting him to be at Test match level. But he's a class player, and they're certainly looking to build him. Duplessis Kirifi, again, I think they'll keep building him. Fine margins at test match level, but I think Duplessis would have been probably a little bit disappointed with a couple of those. There's a few penalties to him, and there was that turnover that he went for that he was penalised against. Just not quite right there. And again, test match level set piece is not Super Rugby set piece. So a bit of a learning opportunity for him there. 21, 22, 23, I think they'll go as Cortez Ratama, Quintapaya, and Damien McKenzie. I wouldn't honestly be surprised if Cortez did start, but I think they'll just keep that combination with Cam Roygaard starting there. Quintapaya, I think he comes back into the 23 on the bench. He played particularly well on that first test. Good ball carrier, good hard defender, and I think they'll just want to keep developing him. And then Damien McKenzie, I think there's a lot of talk about him, but I think what Razor has basically decided is that Bowden is his number one starting first 5, the game management that Bowden brings. And I think that Razor is going to cement having Damien McKenzie on the bench as an impact player and cover for Bowden at first 5. Particularly, I suppose that lines with Damien's strengths. Like, he is so elusive, and what he brings off the bench is particularly dangerous and effective. So I think that's what we'll see for the rest of the season. Damien McKenzie on the bench, unless Razor decides to give Bowden a rest and change the side up. Guys, if you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, chuck some banter down below about my predicted 23, chuck some banter down about how you think the All Blacks are going so far. standout players for the All Blacks or who you think should be selected for Test 3. Can't wait for Test 3. Cheers.